and welcome in everybody to the Dynasty Brews podcast. We are now streaming on YouTube and we are on Twitter as of right now. We will be streaming on Tiki Live with the Belly Up app, 9 a.m. on Saturdays. But guys, today's a very special show. We have our Dynasty running backs, and bringing in today, we have Zach Zander from the Roster Rescue, the TSF Roster Rescue. How's it going, my man, Zach? How you doing today?
Man, it's amazing to be on the show. Thanks, Justin and Justin. I'm ready to sit down, talk Dynasty running backs, and have a drink with you guys for sure. So thanks for having me on the show.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And you already know the tradition. We always like to give a cheers to our guest or first come out. Cheers. That's for the
cheers, fellas.
That's for the guest, and that's for the Brew Crew.
Thank you.
Justin, so how you doing today, man? You been watching the scouting combine?
I haven't really got a chance to today. No, but kind of hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Yeah, no, I haven't really gotten a chance to. Been a busy day today, so I've been following. I've been hearing people talk about it, though.
Yeah, Twitter's going crazy right now. I know me and Zach were talking about earlier on. Freaking everybody's going nuts in that receiver crew out there. I mean, we got Olave starting it out with a 4.26. And then we got Tyquan Thornton coming out with a 4.21. As of right now, I mean, I don't know, Zach, has it changed yet? Is it still unofficial?
It's still unofficial as much as I know of like 10 minutes ago when I was into it. But, man, these wide receivers are scorching.
Yeah, man. It's something else. Like, the scouting combine, I was going into it and I was just like, you're not going to move people that much farther ahead based off of just this. Like, you got to be true to the tape. You got to be true to their stats in college. But I look at something like this. I was talking to you, Zach, about this earlier. Chris Olave, to me, kind of bumps up to that top three. That's for me personally, because I look at that and I go, man, this guy's got the route running down and he's got the speed. He's got that elite speed to go with it. I mean, who wouldn't want this guy, especially in fantasy? I mean, if you can get a possession receiver who can go deep and can burn people, I mean, that's talking about maybe getting a couple 20-yard touchdowns, maybe even longer in a game, you know? So I'm so stoked and I'm so happy that, you know, we're in the scouting season. We're in the combine season. We're wrapping up. We're going towards draft season at this point. And, you know, guys, I want to get it kicked off. Obviously, we want to talk about the scouting combine a little bit, but also I want to talk about some news. So I want to hit it off with maybe getting into something along the line of Aaron Rodgers. How you guys feel about Aaron Rodgers wanting all this money? I'm going to pass it off to you, Zach. Tell me how you feel about Aaron Rodgers asking for $50 million. This man hasn't made a Super Bowl since 2010, if I got that right. I think that was the year they won it. Is he worth $50 million to you?
You know what? It's crazy because Aaron Rodgers is coming off an MVP, but he doesn't get it done in the playoffs. And the thing with it is $50 million. I don't think they'll have enough money to franchise tag Devontae Adams or improve that roster at all. They'll end up having to lose some guys. They're already over the cap. Aaron Rodgers is not playing as well as Patrick Mahomes, even though he won the MVP. $50 million is just a little ridiculous for a player that's almost 40, who's almost kind of putting your team like against the wall of like, is my way or the highway. I'm kind of sick of Aaron Rodgers' his act right now. I really am. He's very talented. He can still win a Super Bowl. He just hasn't gotten there, and he's had every opportunity.
Yeah, no, 100%. You know, obviously this is a guy who he's an elite quarterback, but he just hasn't been able to get it done as far as getting Super Bowls. And then when you compare him to like somebody like Tom Brady, who's won numerous Super Bowls at maybe like $20 million a year, you're like, are you really worth $50 million? Justin, is he really worth $50 million?
Depends on who you ask. I mean, I think it's worth every penny. You know, go talk to Browns fans. Tell me if Aaron Rodgers is worth $50 million, right? I mean, they'd happily pay that, I think. But I think that the real thing you got to talk about here is I don't think he actually wants $50 million. I think it's pretty clear he doesn't want to go back. And he's trying to say I deserve to be the highest paid quarterback because I'm off back-to-back MVP seasons. He's trying to be the guy that makes the case that he should be the highest paid based on his track record. I think he's trying to leave, and I still think that he's not going to be a Packer next year. And I still think he wants to be paired up with Devontae Adams next year. So those guys, he's high on my trade list right now as a guy I want to get. I think he wants to get out of Green Bay, and I still think Jordan Love is also a great buy because I don't think his book's been written yet, and he's freaking cheap as crap.
You know what? I love that you brought that up. I'm more interested in Jordan Love than I am Aaron Rodgers. I guess I am fucking sick of Aaron Rodgers, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go for it, man.
No, you're good, man. Go for it.
Vent it, my man.
No,
Everybody's sick of Aaron Rodgers.
It's a little ridiculous. It's just too much outside the box and not enough playoff wins and to not get back to the Super Bowl and just the drama of it all like last year. And then you came back and you didn't get it done when you should have. And now, like, if you want out of town, just say it. Green Bay will make something. Now, don't get me wrong. Green Bay, they put themselves in this position a little bit, drafting Jordan Love over T. Higgins. Could you imagine T. Higgins on that roster right now? Drafting A.J. Dillon and then re-signing Aaron Jones. It's a great 1-2 punch, but you could maybe get the same production out of a player later in the draft or even a free agent. And I love A.J. Dillon. It's just
they probably could have traded up and gotten Jalen Reagor.
Ooh.
Well, here's something for you. The next pick was Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah.
Anybody. I mean, when your number 2 is MVS or Lazard or, Tunyon came out of nowhere. He's not a great player. He got 10 touchdowns or plus, but can you imagine him with some weapons? I mean, is he worth $50 million? No. Is he a great quarterback? And is he making scrubs look decent? He is, for real. So if he did go to Denver with Jerry Jeudy, Hamler, Sutton, Noah Fant, that would get pretty ridiculous with Javonte Williams. He saw Tom Brady go to Tampa with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown, Gronk, and Fournette, Ronald Jones. I mean, the team was loaded, and I think he was jealous.
Yeah.
So we're talking running backs right today, so I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about this. The talk right now everyone wants to talk about is Aaron Jones or A.J. Dillon. I don't know about you guys, but if Aaron Rodgers leaves, I think both of them are viable. I think Aaron Jones is so freaking cheap right now that he's got to be like high on my list to acquire. I mean, I saw him go in like a 9th round of a mock, and I'm just like, what are we doing here? Like, we're talking about continuous production, guaranteed passing down work. I like AJ Dillon. I was high on him last year because it was the exact opposite of this. He was going in the 9th round. I just feel like both of them are going to have a role next year if Aaron Rodgers is gone, and I think they're both going to produce in big ways next season.
Yeah, I think they're both targets for I'm actually writing up an article right now on the 0 RB strategy and how to optimize it with good running backs in later rounds. And I think both those guys are guys to target because, like you said, Aaron Jones has been slipping. I mean, I've seen him go in 6th round, and I'm perfectly fine taking Aaron Jones in the 6th round. That is a top 15 running back, and the way that they used him in Green Bay last year at the back half of the season was mostly as a goal line and red zone optimized back. He was getting passes. He was getting, every type of goal line touch. At the end of the day, rushing yards, Aaron Dillon did have I think 4 more yards than him. I think it was 803 to 799. And I do think he's got a good future there. But, if I'm really looking at if Aaron Rodgers comes back, he's always going to favor Aaron Jones. He's always going to want to dump it off to Aaron Jones. If he is sitting there in the later rounds, I am definitely taking him as an absolute steal for an RB. If you go 0 RB, if you go for that strategy, I think that's an absolute steal. So I'm looking at both those guys, kind of like how you look at Javonte and Melvin Gordon. Like, they're going to be neck and neck. I think they only separated by 6 spots this past season. I think that's going to be even closer.
Yeah.
How about you, Zach? How you feeling about that?
AJ Dillon, he's going to be the younger player. They are very different, even though the production was very similar. AJ Dillon 250. I mean, we know the thighs and everything else. He's just a bulldozer, and he was catching the ball very nice. Not really the same way Aaron Jones did out of the backfield, where he would maybe line up on a linebacker and beat him off the ball and create separation. AJ Dillon was the check down guy, and he was very good at it. I mean, if either one of them would get hurt next year, the other one could be top 10, especially if Rodgers does come back. I think it's going to be pretty close to 50-50, and they're both kind of like low end. Like I favor Aaron Jones in Dynasty and in redraft next season, but it's not very far off. And if Rodgers does leave, and then I don't know what's going to happen, guys. Like I said, I'm interested in Jordan Love, but I can't expect the same production out of those two players.
No, but that's the thing though in this game is the best way to win is to plant your flag and go into those uncertain situations sometimes, because no one really wants to do that either.
Yeah, no, definitely taking advantage of people that don't want to do that. I feel like the same way about Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara is somebody you could totally take advantage of the situation right now. Yeah, is he probably going to face a suspension? Yeah, sure. But at the end of the day, if he's healthy and he comes back after a 4-game suspension and you got him in the second round, like even like late second round or something like that, because people didn't want to take him, go grab yourself a top 5 running back in the second round. Hell yeah, every single day of the week, I'll take that. 1,000%.
If Kamara stays healthy, I mean, he's going to get suspended probably. I would say probably like 3 or 4 games. But, dude, he's going to do exactly what Swift did. I just think he's going to just have an elite season. Probably his last great season, but I think we're in line for a really good season. I think he's probably embarrassed about what happened, and I think he's going to just want to prove people that he still is freaking elite.
He's been squeaky clean for 5 years. I mean, we haven't heard one thing out of Alvin Kamara. Like, he's never been in a brush with the law before. He's never been in a fight with a coach. I mean, he really has been nothing but a really good guy. So who knows what the backstory of this and with the criminal case. And I think we have to learn a lot of things about that incident. And it didn't sound good during the Pro Bowl weekend and everything, but I mean, Kamara's been squeaky clean, and he's been an elite producer on the field. So they're really going to have to lean on him going forward with the state of their whole offense and their team.
See, I keep finding myself wanting more of this offense, ironically. When you actually take a step back and look at the players that are there, Jameis has plenty of top 5 seasons in him. Michael Thomas comes back. I love Marquez Callaway right now. He's a huge bargain. He actually was really good those first 6 weeks with Jameis. I wouldn't say really good, but he had solid production, 3 touchdowns, 100-yard game in there. And then you got Kamara in the backfield. I imagine they're going to bolster that offense in the first round too. I keep finding myself intrigued by the entire offense, even though right now no one wants anything to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, rightfully so. I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty. We don't even know if Jameis is coming back. Taysom could end up the quarterback, or it could be Captain Small Hands, Kenny Pickett. It could be anybody.
Your favorite player.
What's that?
Your role model, Malik Willis.
Oh yeah, Malik Willis. We still got to talk that bet.
Are you a Malik Willis fan?
I am. He is not.
I've been chattering all day in one of my dynasty groups about Malik Willis and just the status of this quarterback class. I think it's borderline just dog shit. I really don't think any of these guys would have been drafted in the first round last year.
Nope.
But it turns out that this class comes in 2022 when there is more quarterback needy teams than I have ever seen in my entire life. Somebody's getting overdrafted, and actually multiple guys are going to be overdrafted.
See, I haven't dived too much into the tape, but I don't understand the narrative that we'll talk about it right now, Justin. We'll just talk about it. I don't understand the narrative that Justin Fields should be a top 15 pick in a startup, Trey Lance should be a top 15 pick in a startup, when I have just as many questions about him as I do Malik Willis. Accuracy is concerned. struggles to, throw a decent, he can throw a bullet, but can he actually put those passes in the places they need to be at the right speeds? He's going to run a long time, but you're making that top 15 pick. And listen, last year I wrote about it. I didn't think he was going to play last year. I was like, it would be best for him to sit. And I believe in the talent of Trey Lance, but not top 15. I'm taking more surefire production, more surefire elite production people in the top 15. There's just too many good quarterbacks that I'd rather have over him, and it doesn't make any sense to me.
Now I was lukewarm on Trey Lance last year. I really am, but I am a big Kyle Shanahan fan. He X's and O's almost anybody out of the ballpark every single game. He is an elite play caller, play designer, and he gets his quarterbacks in really easy situations. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo got them to a Super Bowl. Does anybody think Jimmy Garoppolo is a top 15 quarterback in this league or ever has been? I don't think so.
I think he's 16. I mean,
okay. I said top 15, but hear me out real quick. I mean, Kyle Shanahan is going to put him in some really easy situations to create some very easy fantasy points and production. And I did buy him in some dynasties last year in the late, second, third round in Superflex drafts because I think the upside is there with his running. Now, the difference between him and Malik, and I was lukewarm on Lance, don't get me wrong, Malik's 6.5 feet tall. Trey Lance is all of 6'3". He's got 3 inches on him. I think Malik has some pop in that arm, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's the same caliber of a Trey Lance. And we don't know where Malik's going to end up, and it's not going to be in as good a situation as Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco. So I think that's what the separation is between them, because if Trey Lance could have went to a lot of places last year and I would have been like, no, thank you. San Francisco is one of the situations where I was like, man, if they let him learn, he's going to be really good, at least on fantasy. On paper, he's going to put up fantasy points.
Yeah, so I actually I did this little thing last year on NFL.com where you predict the picks. I got the first 7 right, and then the last 3 I was way off. So I thought he would end up there, and I was pretty happy with the way that all worked out. But I don't know. I just feel like based on their costs, I'm kind of all in right now on Wilson at his cost because I just think that we don't know what's going to happen.
We actually don't know who's going to draft him yet, and that's fine because
you're all audio right now.
I'm all audio. All right, sorry. So yeah, I'm all in on his cost. I think people are a little bit scared based on the situation, but I think he's going to be fine. I think that dude's a hard worker and he'll figure it out. But yeah, he could easily go to like the Browns and be a complete flame out. It's just the way it is. But right now, he's not going to cost you near what it's going to cost to get Trey Lance based on the situation.
Are you a Browns fan?
Me? No, I'm a Bills fan.
Okay. The thing with Willis is, Trey Lance had this season against scrubs where he threw 0 interceptions and they were the Alabama of their conference and their division and everything else. But too many times Malik Willis, he was playing Middle Tennessee State or whoever, and he throws 3 interceptions and he goes 13 for 30. And it's kind of like very inaccurate, throwing some very bad balls. And of course, Liberty is not the caliber of Alabama, but I wanted a little bit more and a big game for me. And
I'm with you. Yeah, that old Miss game, right?
The old Miss game. You took the words out of my mouth. Thank you, Justin. You are fucking on point, dude. I like it. And they were outmatched. Don't get me wrong. The wide receiver corner matchups. The defensive line, offensive line matchups. Ole Miss by far had them. But God damn it, I like to see my quarterbacks kind of rally their team around them and be productive against even a better team. And they didn't move the ball at all.
Yeah, with you, he definitely didn't rise to the occasion at all. I'm not gonna lie, that one would let me down. But don't forget, I believe he was battling an ankle injury at the time. That's the one thing I'll hang my hat on. I think he missed the game before. I'm trying to remember because I was like all hyped for that game. I wanted to watch it super bad. I have 4 kids, so I didn't get a chance to watch it. I went back and watched the highlights, and I was just very unimpressed. I get it. He's got so many question marks, but I feel like right now people are so scared of him that I'm in on him. And I think he has the highest upside of this abysmal class. Like, if there's one
Yeah,
guy
of
I'm going to
course.
draft, it's going to be Malik Willis. That's the only guy that so far I've watched. And I'm like, okay, if we can fix some of this stuff that you have issues with, you're the only one I see that has the arm strength to get it done at the next level. You have the athleticism. Maybe we can get our footwork right and actually get this thing going in the right direction. The
All
Giants
right.
would be the absolute best spot.
You said the Giants?
Yeah, you got Dable.
Well, I mean, just because Dable did Josh Allen doesn't mean that the Giants are fixed in like a draft. I mean, they still got to fix that offensive line. They still got to figure out what Kadarius Toney really is. They still got to find some way to get Evan Ingram involved in that offense to where he's successful. I'm going to step into this real quick because I haven't gotten a word in like 5 minutes.
No, you're good.
But so I just got done actually going through a ton of Malik Willis tape, and I'm going to tell you why I'm super unimpressed by this guy. He overthrows screen passes. He overthrows a lot of his deep balls, which he's supposed to be known for. He has terrible decision making. Did you guys watch the Campbell game? He should have been picked off 3 times. Who the fuck knows who Campbell University is? You know what I'm saying? Like, he should have been picked off 3 times. He literally had one right in the defender's hands, but they're so terrible at Campbell University, they couldn't actually pick the ball off.
He knew that. It was all part of the game plan.
He's often running into defenders, which makes me question how his longevity is going to be because he's not really the biggest quarterback. He's not Josh Allen barreling into these guys. He does it. He did it against Syracuse. I mean, he led a nice comeback against Syracuse, but let's not like forget that, you know, he was having plenty of mistakes in that game as well. My biggest problem with him is that wherever he lands, it has to be like a Pittsburgh. It has to be a really good situation at this point with all the hype that's going behind him. It's probably not going to be a Pittsburgh. It's probably going to be a Washington Commanders. It's probably going to be.
Yeah, Washington is the worst situation that he could
exactly.
Go to. But I forgot. Yeah, Pittsburgh's been talked about for 2 years now. They're super high on him. I mean, I can see that.
Tomlin was following him around all the way through the Senior Bowl. That was the whole get up. It was Tomlin was on him in the Senior Bowl the entire time. And here's my thing with Trey Lance, just like Zach Zander said, because guess what, Zach? I don't know if you know this, but I bleed maroon and gold, my friend. So I love Trey Lance. You say he did it against bad competition. I say that he did it against the best competition in Division II. You know, and then, I mean, obviously that's not Division I, but, you know, Liberty can be questioned as Division I sometimes too. And then you look at what he did against Houston. And a lot of people were like, oh, it's Houston. Well, Houston that previous week picked off Justin Herbert 3 times. That was a good team. It was a good team rolling in off a good win.
There's some athletes on Houston for sure.
Yeah. And all I'm saying is that he made his adjustments mid-half. So when I look at the Trey Lance, Malik Willis comparison, yeah, I see the comparison. They're very much similar athletes. My only issue is I don't know where Malik Willis is going, and I don't know if he's going to a good quarterback coach. I don't know if he's going to somebody who's going to teach him how to do the fundamentals right, because that's the one thing he doesn't know how to do right now is the fundamentals. He doesn't know how to search through his reads. He was just going mostly to wherever he wanted to go at the beginning, but that was fine because most of the competition he was playing was inferior anyways. So that's my like 3 minutes of ranting right there.
If he gets a starting job, and I'll leave it at this, at least from my point of view, if he gets a starting, we're talking fantasy. If he gets a starting job and keeps it, he's going to put up a shitload of fantasy points.
Yeah.
If he keeps a starting job, he will put up fantasy points. Will he get enough wins to keep a starting job is my biggest question.
And when will he get a starting job? They've already got coaches at the scouting combine saying he's a 2-year project.
Well,
when is he going to get a starting job? Are you putting him on your dynasty team for 2-3 years down the line? Like if he lands somewhere with good opportunities, yeah, sure, it could be awesome. But what if it's 2-3 years down the line? What if he goes to Pittsburgh, but they have Jimmy Garoppolo in front of him?
That's fine, dude. You'd want that. You'd want a guy with elite potential who actually gets time to develop. I mean, let's not forget that back in college, Trey Lance had 16 games and didn't throw for over 20 passes in over half his games. Only 7 of those games, he only threw the ball over 20 times. He wasn't a perfect prospect either. So
no, but it's a national champion.
People were drafting him number 3 overall. So I don't think it's insane to think that Malik Willis should still be. I think in this class he should.
Sorry.
What?
I don't know who's drafting number 3 overall. That's insane.
In the rookie drafts last year.
That's still insane to me because a lot of people should have known that he was still going to be like a prospect, like that was going to be behind somebody.
The stuff the draft cited, he was right behind Justin Fields at 103. So I'm just saying, I mean, he has flaws, but I think a lot of these rookies have flaws. We're going to see. I just think that, as I said, if I'm going to hitch my wagon to one of these guys, that he's got the most upside, and I'm taking that chance right now. If no one else is going to, I love the polarizing prospects that I do believe in, because it makes it a lot cheaper for me to acquire. It's cheap to acquire them, and then you get your guy. Whereas last year, if you wanted Trevor Lawrence, like 95% of people did, it was like impossible to get him.
Well, let's do a shotgun bet.
Don't forget the DeAndre Swift bet last year that you made fun of me about.
All right, shotgun bet. Why don't we do it for 2 years? Or what do you want to do? 2 years or 1 year of fantasy progression? You want to do the highest?
How about we'll do this. We'll do a beer bet, and we'll do minimum 8 games by both players, and whoever has Malik Willis or Trey Lance, whoever has the highest average fantasy points per game. Minimum 8 games.
Sounds good to me. All right, so now it's on record. Now Zach knows about it. Zach's gonna be tuning into the show just to see this bet.
I think Zach wants in on this. It looks like he's like, man,
Well,
I'm on the
like I said, I had the same questions about Trey Lance that I have Malik Willis, minus he's 3 inches shorter. And I've seen him be wildly inaccurate in college, where you didn't see it from Lance because they were always winning, because they were the Alabama of their conference and their division, and they
ran the ball all the time.
No, and they really did. I think he's physically a different person than Malik Willis. Malik Willis is 6.5 feet tall, built more like a running back, and Lance is 6'3", around the same weight. I think he is I don't know. Malik Willis, I would have loved to see him run the 40 today, because I really wanted to see what type of athlete he really is. He didn't do any of the athletic drills, which I'm kind of unimpressed with. So we
don't forget Lamar. Lamar didn't do it either, though. I was the same way with Lamar, and now
Lamar didn't either, but he was going to run a 4.3, and people were going to ask him to play wide receiver. Malik Willis on tape isn't a 4.3 guy, but who fucking knows? With this track right now, the way these wide receivers are running, who knows? He might have ran a 4.3, and I look silly with pie on my face, but I think they're a little different just because of the size, and I've seen too many bad throws from Malik when I didn't see any of those. And it goes down, man. It's Shanahan in the landing spot of San Fran. That's
so. Let me ask you guys this. Here's a question.
Are we going to get to our programming?
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry. Well, we're supposed to do running backs. We'll do that next. But I'm going to give you the 2 most hated prospects the last 2 years. Would you rather have Zach Wilson or Malik Willis?
Zach Wilson.
I have to know where Malik lands.
It doesn't matter. He could land in the San Francisco. I don't know. I'm taking Zach Wilson. He's a much better thrower of the ball. I think he's going to be more of a long-term starter.
Yeah,
Malik is going to get a chance somewhere, even if he gets drafted in the second round. It doesn't seem like that. I see him as a day 2 player. That doesn't always happen. I'm not an NFL GM. I fucking wish I was. I see him as a day 2 player, but he's probably going to go first round to somebody because there's so many QB needy teams. And he's probably going to get thrown out on the field probably a little too early, because he's not going to be behind a Jimmy Garoppolo like Trey Lance. Mm-hmm. He's probably going to put up some really good fantasy stats, much like Jalen Hurts. But are they going to win games? How is it going to look? Is he going to be efficient throwing the ball? And those are my biggest questions. But I take Zach Wilson, even though it looked really bad at times last year. I think he turned it around a little bit in December, and I'm looking forward to seeing him with a better cast of characters around him.
So I did write an article on him. You are right. The 2 of the last 4 weeks, Zach Wilson finished QB5 or higher.
I didn't know that. That's nice.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Do you take Wilson over Willis? Justin,
Yeah.
Dynasty Matt, you do?
Yeah, no, yeah, I do. He was my, I'll get a lot of heat. People don't know. I mean, I take quarterbacks pretty serious. Zach Wilson was my highest graded prospect last year.
Damn.
Over
Okay.
Lawrence. I had Lawrence at 2, but I had huge question marks about Urban Meyer, and my friends made fun of me. They said coaching doesn't matter, and sure as hell, it did last year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's funny. I got posterized the same way for saying that Zach Wilson was the most. I didn't like him. I didn't like him at all. And everybody started after week 1 of the preseason. Everybody's just like, "Oh, what are you talking about? You don't know anything about what you're talking about." And Zach Wilson did not perform that well. I mean, I'm not totally out on him, but at the same time, like he's got to step it up in year 2 for sure. And he's got to prove that, he can use all of his weapons around him. He didn't really utilize Michael Carter to his fullest potential. Michael Carter got 33 of his targets or 33 of his 55 targets when Mike White was in there.
Difficult to, do well when you're on your back. Then again, I will say.
But here's the thing. The Jets offensive line was actually ranked 11th. So he wasn't on his back as much as everybody thinks he was.
Every time I watched it, there was pressure up the middle every single time. I think that they're going to invest in offensive line pretty heavily. Now, let's not forget, during the season, Mike White was the future of the Jets for like 3 weeks.
Jeez. So I can see why you guys are a good team. You don't agree on shit.
No, we actually agree on quite a bit. We just find topics when we don't agree on.
Right.
we save it for the show because it's a good show. But guys, this is a good conversation, man. But we got a mission here. Let's talk about some RBs, guys. Let's talk about some running backs. So I'm gonna pull it up. These are the top dynasty, and I've got RB1s, RB2s, and RB3s. And I want you guys to roll it down with me. Who do you think doesn't belong on this list? Who do you think should be switched around on this list? What are your problems with this list? Let's start it off with Jonathan Taylor. I don't think anybody has a problem with Jonathan Taylor. Does anybody have a problem with Jonathan Taylor being number 1?
No.
Nah? That's what I thought. How about Najee? Do you guys have faith that Najee's gonna bring the return of being the number 2 dynasty running back?
I'd rather have McCaffrey myself than Najee. I'll eat the injury concerns for the production.
You know what? We agree right there. I actually have CMC as my dynasty RB2, and it's for some of the simpler reasons. And he has been injured the last 2 years, and it was very, detrimental to your fantasy teams, obviously. The thing with Christian McCaffrey is even maybe when he's not this elite guy in Dynasty where he is an RB2 or RB3 or even in the top 10 of Dynasty running backs, he's going to catch 80 balls. He's going to be an elite receiver out of the backfield. And I almost think they're giving him a little too much work up the middle, getting him banged up, even though last year it was, ankle and some stuff that wasn't really about getting banged up. But this guy is going to catch 80 passes a year well into his 30s.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that take. Yeah, he's definitely the offense. How about Swift, guys? So I was just doing some statistics, and he had 78 targets, but that was minus 4 games. So on the pace that he was for 17 games, he was at 104 targets, which is crazy because that would have been the league leading amount of targets. Do you guys trust DeAndre Swift going forward? I mean, he's had injuries in the past couple of years. I think he's mixed a total of about 6 or 7 games with concussions.
He's never topped over 13 games. I myself have him lower. I have him around Dalvin Cook. I know he's younger than Dalvin Cook, but Dalvin Cook has similar concerns. Can't seem to put together a full season. Normally I'd like to see 15 weeks ish with like a week or 2 off. I just don't know if I also feel like this was his best case scenario where there wasn't a whole lot of weapons around him earlier on in the season. So he was getting a lot of dump offs. I think as they add more weapons, you saw Amon-Ra St. Brown kind of break out towards the end of last season. They have some draft capital this year to go upgrade at the wide receivers. We're seeing tear up the combine. So I think we're going to see a dip in the usage out of the receiving usage. And then he's not built, I don't think, to be, a guy that's going to get the ball, a bell cow back that's going to get a lot of carries either. So I myself have a lot of him because I expected a big year last year, and now I would be expecting to get out of my shares of him this year and kind of make some upgrades that don't look like upgrades.
How about you, Zach? How you feeling about Swift?
You know what? I really liked everything he just said right there. I'm a little bit higher. I think you might be a little too lukewarm on him, but you made a lot of sense right there. Now, if they get some upgrades around him, I don't know if that hurts him. Now, he might not get 105 targets or whatever he was on pace for last year, but he might get 3 more easy 3-yard touchdowns, and it's going to open up his running up the middle. Now, I don't see him as a 20 carry guy. I really don't. I see him as a 15 to 18 touch guy who needs a complimentary back, kind of like a Jamal Williams, to go with him, to bang around a little bit on defensive ends and linebackers, keep him fresh. He is one of the most elusive players for his size at the running back position. And he's going into his 3rd year. The offense has to get a little bit better. Now, that might, like I said, it might take a few targets away, but bringing in a real number 1 wide receiver to go with St. Brown and Hawkinson and maybe another offensive lineman, I think that's going to do nothing but help him. I have him currently as my RB3 right behind Jonathan Taylor and CMC in the Dynasty format.
Nice. I mean, you guys are talking about bringing in another wide receiver. What would be your ideal wide receiver to bring into that roster? Like out of say we're drafting, say it's not free agency, say you're drafting a wide receiver, say it's the 32nd pick. Who you bringing in?
Well, it depends who's there. Now, Treylon Burks is kind of seemed like he's falling a little bit. I don't think he's going to fall to 32.
Yeah.
Garrett Wilson's going to be there, but Drake London will probably be gone. So I'm thinking like a George Pickens, who ran really well today, who was actually my wide receiver 1 before the season started. He would go great with St. Brown in the slot. George Pickens, 6'3", 195 pounds. Him and Hawkinson with Swift in the backfield. The decent offensive line. Now we're working with something, give Jared Goff a chance. Do I think Jared Goff is the long-term answer? Not so much, but George Pickens would make that offense look a hell of a lot better. And it kind of depends who's going to be there with that pick. Obviously, Jahan Dotson's looked really good. Christian Watson's running great. So they're going to have some options if they want to pick a wide receiver at 132 or with their first, second-round pick, which is very high too, obviously.
Yeah, a lot of mock drafts I've been seeing, it's been Jameis Williams has been sliding a lot. And he's a name that kind of like, I ponder for that situation, because if he does end up sliding, somebody ends up sliding up because of the combine, maybe they take his places, maybe the 4th receiver drafted, even though I think he should go a little bit higher, but with injury issues, I think that could be a nice fit there. It would give them a little bit of a speed guy who can really take that alpha position while obviously Amon-Ra St. Brown takes the slot, and you got Hawkinson to take the middle of the field. Where'd he go? All right. But yeah, how you feeling about Javonte though? I mean, with all the rumor mill going around that Melvin Gordon is possibly going to be coming back, does that hurt where Javonte is standing right now as the number 5 for you?
If Melvin comes back, a touch, I don't think he's coming back. I think it's a bunch of bullshit. I think Melvin's probably going to skate and go to a position where he can immediately get the carries and the workload that he's going to want to. There's enough spots where a team needs a Melvin Gordon. Now, that would just be maybe pushing off Javonte's huge RB1 season another year. So would it drop behind an Eckler or a Mixon or a Chubb? I don't know about that. I mean, he looked really good last year. This is a team on the rise. They just need to get that quarterback position right, which is much easier said than done, obviously. But Javonte showed it that he is a difference maker, because he can make production when it's not necessarily there, because he makes people miss and breaks tackles, and he turns 3-yard gains into 7-yard gains, and he turns 8-yard catches into 16-yard catches, and that shit adds up in fantasy football. And he's a stellar player, and if anything, he's not getting beat up too much with too much production. But Melvin coming back would muddy the waters for a year. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the one thing that was really kind of, undervalued for him was that he was actually becoming a really good receiving target as well. I mean, he had 53 targets. He caught 43 passes. This is a guy who really can do it all. And to your credit, what you were saying, he's like a bowling ball. He reminds me a lot of Maurice Jones-Drew out there, where people will just bounce off of him when they hit him. And it's kind of crazy. Look at his highlight reel, and you just see people just falling when they come off of him, or he's just dragging them and everything. If he had the home run speed, it would be absolutely game over. But yeah, I mean, I think that for Dynasty, Javonte doesn't really move too far down for me either, because you got to think, 3 years down the line, and even if Melvin comes back, you're kind of preserving him for 3 years down the line, right? You're kind of extending that 3 years down the line, because he finished, I think, what was it, RB 18 this year, after splitting it right down the middle 50-50 with Melvin Gordon. So that's a pretty great, sign of things to come in the future. Here's a name for you, Austin Eckler. How much do you think about this guy's success going forward? Do you think that he can sustain what he did this year? I mean, obviously in the past he's had injuries. He's never really broken he's never broken 1,000 yards, period. So how are you feeling about, his 20 touchdown season? It's obviously going to be a regression in that account, but do you think he can progress in other areas to kind of keep his dynasty and fantasy value stable? Justin, hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I'm going to let you take Austin Eckler first. How are you feeling about Austin Eckler?
Yeah, Austin Eckler, he's a guy I just worry about. I have concerns. He's getting up there in age a little bit. And I just have concerns about him staying healthy throughout the whole season. I think we're going to see them try. I know at the end of the season, they're having talks about kind of dialing back his usage a little bit. So just some concerns I have about him. I think 6 is a little rich for my blood. I actually, my hot take here I'll drop right now is one guy I'm super high on that I'd rather have than Austin Eckler is Eli Mitchell. But my concern with him is Trey Lance stealing his production. But based off last season's production from Eli Mitchell, I think I'd rather have him on my squad, being in a Shanahan offense versus Austin Eckler at his age, and the rumors of him trying to dial back his usage.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, he's definitely had some problems in the past, and I was just talking about how he's never reached 1,000 yards rushing before. But I think it was definitely progress this year. I mean, he was getting picked in the back end of the first round, and he definitely cashed in on it. I think one thing you could take to the bank is that obviously he works out hard, and he goes in every single game prepared. Like, guys' workout videos are insane. He's freaking squatting like 500 pounds. So he's in good shape, and he's going to be out there and ready to tear it up, kind of like the CMC light format. But let's move on to Joe Mixon. Zach, tell me how your feelings are on Joe Mixon.
You know what? We finally got the Joe Mixon not injured season. And It was a beautiful thing. I mean, it really was. And it was behind a subpar offensive line with a outstanding quarterback and 2 amazing wide receivers. They're not going nowhere. Quarterback, wide receivers, they're not going anywhere. The offensive line can only improve. So now we're just into the role. Okay, now we have to have a second Joe Mixon non-injury season, which we haven't seen yet. So I'm a little bit worried, but I'm right there with it. I have him at 6, right behind Javonte. I have him above Eckler because he is so dynamic in the receiving game. He has the stellar offense around him. I would like to see them actually maybe use Chris Evans a little bit more. I don't mind my dynasty running backs sharing a little bit of the load. I don't want to see them, give all the goal line carries to somebody else, but hopefully P. Ryan gets out of the way and doesn't play third downs anymore. That's the one thing I think he can improve on some of his receptions, at least his
It's going to be Puka Williams.
Yeah, Puka, whatever. I like Chris Evans to kind of be the Joe Mixon, like the B version, and maybe take a little bit of a load off him. And he's signed under contract. He's not going anywhere. He's going to be on this team with this elite offense for a while. Joe Mixon is a legit RB1 in dynasty formats.
And he's one of those guys that, believe it or not, he's 25 years old right now. Like I feel like Joe Mixon's been around forever. I mean, I think this is his fourth season. I mean, and like you said, it's the first time he's really seen almost the full season. He saw 16 games. I think that was because the last game he wasn't utilized. But I mean, that's because they already had the playoffs. 1,500 yards total in scrimmage, 16 touchdowns. He was absolutely a juggernaut this year. Justin, tell me about Dalvin Cook. Are you in on Dalvin Cook anymore, or are you not in on Dalvin Cook anymore? How should we be playing him dynasty-wise? Should we be letting him slip to the second round?
Yeah, probably. I'm actually higher on Alexander Madison after this year than I am on Dalvin Cook. Questions about how they're going to run that offense.
You really think that's going to happen, don't you?
Listen, there's some legal concerns there with Dalvin Cook. Madison's got 1 year left. I really think Madison's going to get kind of like a Michael Turner type of career where he's going to just get a contract to be a guy next year for cheap, and he's going to establish himself as a starter somewhere. It might only be for a year or two, but he's the guy I'm stashing now for next year when he hits free agency. Dalvin Cook's got legal concerns. He's got the injury concerns. He's elite when he plays. He just has to actually play, and it has to be. I don't know. I feel like I'd rather have a guy like Kamara who is behind him here than I would Dalvin Cook. Based on the current trajectory of the way drafts are going, I just can't see myself drafting Dalvin Cook based on the players that are around him.
So you'd rather go for one guy with legal issues over the other guy with legal issues?
I would, yeah. I think the situation's better, and I think that I just think Kamara is so freaking efficient, whereas Dalvin Cook can be ridiculously good, but Dalvin Cook also.
What if I told you that Alvin Kamara had his lowest yards per carry and reception total last year, and only had his second lowest games played? What would you say then? As far as this offense going forward, because it's not really going to change. I mean, Michael Thomas is
going to alleviate some of that pressure. Depends on who the quarterback is. I just think that Kamara is going to get a lot of passing down work, and he's not going to have the C-man throwing him the ball out of the backfield. I
mean, I didn't even mind Simeon. To be honest with you, he actually put up some better games than Taysom Hill did. I mean, not for fantasy, but as far as like getting your other guys involved, sometimes he actually made the other guys look a little bit better. Alvin Kamara had 47 receptions last year. His career lowest. He had never before. I mean, he was hitting like 80s for his previous season. So that's
Didn't he miss a couple games last year too, though?
Yeah, but he only missed one more game than his previous one. So he played 13 games, and his previous lowest season was 14. And that season he had 81 catches. So he wasn't.
Just wait till Tom Brady's throwing him the ball next season.
That would be amazing.
It's not going to happen
at the same time. That would be amazingly weird at the same time.
Completely sarcasm. It would never.
He would take the biggest pay cut of all time. He'd be working on.
It would never. The Bucks would never do that. It was just a joke.
Yeah. Well, we've seen weirder things happen.
I'll tell you a guy I take above both of them, and it's kind of controversial, but Nick Chubb, even though he's in a shared system in Cleveland, he's going into his fifth season, but I feel he's a really fresh 5-year player where he's, hasn't carried a crazy amount of workload because Kareem Hunt has been there. Kevin Stefanski isn't going anywhere. This run game is elite. This offensive line is elite. The offensive line is really not going anywhere. The wide receiver can only get better around him. I want to see him full strength. I mean, he's, a little nip, what was it, a calf or something put him on the IR this year for like 4 weeks. Plus he had COVID. So his stats aren't going to look that great. But the game tape, watch the Green Bay tape. I mean, Nick Chubb looked amazing. I want to see a full Nick Chubb RB1 season, and it can be Dalvin-esque from 2019, 2020. Nick Chubb I have as my RB7 right behind Mixon because I love the offensive scheme for a running back. He's going to be the workhorse on the goal line. The quarterback play's got to get a little bit better. Even if it's Baker, he's going to be healthy. They have to get some wide receivers. In Cleveland, I mean, they're going to be running the ball in October, November, December, playing in that division. Give me Nick Chubb. I feel as confident about him going forward 2, 3, 4 years from now as anybody behind him on your list.
Let me ask you guys this, because there's one guy that I would take above Austin Eckler and over everyone else on this list, kind of. There's one coach, and Justin, I don't know if you saw my tweet over the weekend, so if you did, don't answer this question. There is one coach who has delivered 1,000-yard rushing seasons as an offensive coordinator, and his 1,000-yard rushers have been Reggie Bush, Jamal Charles, and Peyton Hillis. Do we know who that coach is?
His head coach?
Today, he's the head coach. Yep.
I don't know, man. I'm not sure where you're going. You got me stumped.
Kansas City guy.
Brian Dable has had 1,000-yard rushers at every stop except for Buffalo when he had Josh Allen. I'm all in on Saquon Barkley this year while everyone else is down. If Barkley can stay healthy, I think he's going to go back to elite production this season. Not based on necessarily being what he used to be, but based on opportunity. He's going to get so many carries because I don't think they're going to want Daniel Jones chucking the ball as much as Josh Allen did back in Buffalo.
They
so
definitely
I think
don't want Daniel Jones chucking that ball.
they're going to to quote Doug Marrone, they are going to give Barkley the ball until he pukes, I believe. I'm all in on Saquon Barkley this year.
Or until he breaks himself again. I mean,
I have so many fucking Saquon Barkley shares. Please talk this into existence. Please.
I'm telling you, dude, they're not going to trade him. I'm telling you, I've never
50% dynasty share.
Dude, I'm telling you.
Hope they trade him. Are you kidding me?
No, dude, they're not. They do not need to
trade him. They trade him. Get some capital for the future.
No,
you spent a first-round pick on a guy now.
They're having discussions for what his value is at the combine. They're offering like a 4th-round pick. Like, get out of here. No. Saquon Barkley has had some injury concerns, yes, but the dude came back from an ACL. He's had 2 seasons with injuries, and he's had just terrible production around him. I mean, he's had probably the 2 worst coaches I've seen in a while be his head coach. I mean, Joe Judge was a joke, and then who was there before him? It was that dude that was in Denver last year.
McAdoo. Was it
no,
McAdoo?
It wasn't Matt. No, it was the dude that was like in Denver last year, the offensive coordinator of Denver. I want to say.
God, that offense was terrible. So he's terrible. I don't know exactly who it is, but you know what? Saquon, a year from an ACL injury, a year away from that terrible ankle injury that he suffered, like week 4 or something this year. I mean, go back to the Saints game. It looked like elite Saquon Barkley this season, and it was the best the Giants looked all year. It was the best Daniel Jones looked all year against the Saints. And then I believe it was the next week I thought he broke his ankle in half. He sprained it. And then by the time he came back from the sprained ankle, it was just he was a shell of himself. Devontae Booker was outplaying him. It put a bunch of fear in everybody's heads that he lost it. So it would not surprise me to see an elite Saquon Barkley week 1. It's just how good is the offense going to be around him for fantasy concerns. But God damn it, make it happen because I own this dude everywhere.
I'm just in this season, and I would imagine that whoever's coaching that offensive line cannot be worse than the offensive line coaching they've had the last couple of years.
You want to make another bet? You want to make another bet? Because I guarantee you Saquon does not make it over 1,000 yards.
Oh, all day. I'll take that all day. What do you want to do?
Yeah. Okay. Easy enough.
I
guarantee another shotgun bet. Shotgun bet.
Let's do
that's 1,000 rushing, not all scrimmage.
That's fine. I mean, these dudes are just, dude. Peyton Hillis and Reggie. Reggie Bush was okay, but Reggie Bush was nothing until Daboll got all day. Oh, by the way, there was another guy that he had that had like 986 yards. I'm all in on this. Saquon will not go below 1,000 yards, and if you're doing prediction strike or anything, Saquon is like dirt cheap there. I'm telling you, ridiculous. Saquon Barkley is going to go off this season, and I was so out on him last year, and I'm all in this season.
Oof. I am not all in. I am not all in on him until I see that Giants team make a effort into making their team better. And I mean, obviously Dable is in the right direction there, but to be honest, until you get that line straight, I am not in on Saquon Barkley, and I will take that 1,000-yard bet all day long because I guarantee he's probably gonna get injured. I mean, I don't want that to happen, but
I mean, every running back is hurt nowadays for a game or two at least, especially in a 17-game season.
But CMC is the perfect example. When you put the entire weight of the offense on somebody, it eventually just breaks them. And once it happens it just continuously happens. I mean,
I think
Ezekiel Elliott has the same problem. I mean, he was strong in the beginning of the year, and then he just got weaker and weaker.
See, I disagree. I think Zeke was I think Zeke was inefficient all year. I think Zeke's just over the hill. I think Saquon needs to be the featured back. I think Saquon is kind of like feeling a little bit, there's talks of the trade rumors. I think he wants to. I think the reason those trade rumors are leaking is because they're trying to motivate this dude. I think he's had a bad run the last couple of years, and they literally are trying to motivate him and get him up because I'm telling you, he's the only piece they have. Him and Kenny Galladay are so cheap right now, and I can see both of them turning this around within a season or two. And if Daniel Jones isn't the answer, which I don't think he is,
he never was,
they'll figure it out. Like Saquon Barkley is going to run through the offense is going to run through that dude.
Yeah, and that's why I'm betting against it. If they really wanted to motivate him, I mean, in any way, shape, or form, they would just trade him to Buffalo right now and give him a new scenery. Say,
that would be terrible.
Here you go. No, that'd be terrible for Josh Allen's stock, but it wouldn't be terrible for Saquon's stock.
Nope.
It would be great for Saquon's stock. You'd have an elite offense around him. I mean, they're already thinking about why.
Because the problems in Buffalo aren't the running backs. It's actually their offensive line. Their offensive line is built with a bunch of dudes that are pass blockers, not necessarily run blockers. So it's just a bad fit. That's why Singletary kind of makes sense to them because he fits their little. He's not a guy that's going to get the ball 20 times a game. He gets like 10 carries a game, and that's fine. They like to dump passes off. That's really what they want. They need like a pass catching back. If you're going to try and do
a pass catching back, are you kidding me? How many receptions did he have in his first year? He was targeted over 100 times. He was targeted over 100 times. It was the problem when Daniel Jones switched over from Eli Manning. That's where the production dropped off. And then it's just been on a steady decline ever since. Yeah, look at his first year stats.
I had him that year. He killed it that year.
I mean, that would be the perfect solution for him to get him somewhere else where he can actually rebuild himself instead of having to be the face of a dying organization. No offense, New York Giants fans, love you. But yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Hey, we disagree. I'm not offended, dude. We disagree. Who gives a shit?
No, I know. I'm more or less mad that I put down Saquon because I actually like that dude coming out of Penn State. I just hate that he's with the Giants.
I think Saquon. I'm more interested in him catching the ball than running the ball, just because of where that offense is. He's not going to get a bunch of weighted carries, goal line carries. I think he's going to have to churn out yards in the pass game with receptions and some yards after the catch, and show the explosiveness that we've seen his rookie season, because we just haven't got to see it a lot since. And I believe it's still there. I do not believe in the offense. So I think he's going to have to kind of churn out a lot of points per reception. But he can easily do that because he is nasty against any linebacker, and get him out in the open field. He is still a 225-pound running back that can run a 4.4 flat. So I think that explosiveness is still there. I mean, get him on a better offense. I'm with you. Trade him to a better offense. I don't want to wait around for the Giants to get better.
So just so we're clear, back when Dable was the coordinator in Cleveland, he had Jerome Harrison run for 862 yards and Jamal Lewis run for 500, with Brady Quinn and Derek Anderson as quarterbacks, and Josh Cribbs as the best receiver on that team. So,
oh yeah, I live in Canton, so I watched all the Cleveland Browns games back then. They were fucking terrible. And I remember Jerome Harrison had like a like 60-yard game against the Chiefs, and Jamal Charles actually had like over 200 yards too. It was an amazing game, and yeah, I like the head coaching job. Like they did a better job. But like Joe Judge was terrible as a head coach. I mean,
absolutely, yeah.
he put this team back years. I mean, he was equally as bad as Urban Meyer, and I mean that. It was just, where are they going to go with the quarterback? They have 2 top 7 picks. I mean, that's almost unheard of. That's happened very few times in NFL history. What
The
are they going
Browns
to
were
do
the
with
last team to. I think the Browns were the last team to do it, weren't they?
Right.
1-5, I think.
Denzel Ward at 4, and they had Baker Mayfield at 1, and guess who was 2? Saquon Barkley. But, I think one of those top 7 picks is going to be an offensive lineman. Andrew Thomas was a terrible pick. How they took Andrew Thomas 4th overall over the other offensive linemen and the other players that they possibly could have took was pathetic. Andrew Thomas was a decent pick to me. Maybe they move him over to the right side and draft one of these stud left tackles. But at the end of the day, I'm not buying the offense. I'm just hoping he's great enough and still has that explosiveness to create a lot after the catch and a lot of chunk plays that, a normal running back wouldn't get.
And just for the record, my belief in Saquon is not necessarily me believing in Daboll. I think Daboll has been terrible outside of Buffalo, and I think Allen made Daboll. My point is he does give the ball to his best players. That's at least something that he does well.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, who wouldn't give the ball to Saquon Barkley? But the problem isn't just bringing in a new coach. It's bringing in a whole new system. It's bringing in new players. It's going out and drafting the right players. I like Kadarius Toney as a prospect, but I think he would have done better on a different team, and they would have gone after a left tackle or gone after somebody, a little bit better, like maybe Elijah Vera Tucker, get like a right guard or left guard in there. My point is that the Giants as a team are just not ready, and they need to do a lot this offseason to get ready for Saquon Barkley to have another magical season. And, it's going to be his 5th-year option. So, I mean, at this point, time's ticking with this guy. If he doesn't get traded, he might want to just leave. And, I totally am for him being on a different team because I want him to succeed. I actually want to lose this bet.
I just have a
feeling I'm not.
I highly doubt he's on the Giants in 2023. I mean, I highly doubt that.
I think it'll depend on how they do this season for sure. Well, you talk about a guy that set the Giants back. What the Giants need to do with their picks in this draft is they need to sit down and ask themselves one question, and that is, what would Dave Gettleman do? And then do the opposite.
That's great. I want to ask about one guy that you don't actually, maybe another guy you don't have on this list. Derrick Henry.
Is he on this? Is he on this list? Hold on one second.
He's definitely on that list. And the other guy I wanted to ask about was Cam Akers. And where do they compare to the end of your tier 1 or at least your top 12, which you would consider RB1s? And Derrick Henry was almost flawless until last year with the injury, and he even came back early. And he's a workout warrior who was actually catching the ball at a higher rate than ever in his career last year. So, how do you guys feel about Derrick Henry? Where do they end up on your list?
So I just want to clear this up real quick. Our logo is on this one, but I apologize. I didn't say this ahead of time. This is actually the Dynasty list from Fantasy Pros. So I just wanted to throw that out there, make sure that I covered before somebody comes after me and says, hey, you used my list. No, I'm just kidding. I just didn't want to take credit for not having Derrick Henry in the top 12. But yeah, Justin, I'll let you lead off on this one.
Yeah, I struggle with it. It just depends on, the business. I'm an accountant during the day, so it's always, whenever I get asked questions, it's always the standard answer is, well, it depends. Are you in a rebuild? He's not in my top 12. Are you trying to win a championship? He's like number 4 for me. It's kind of where I'm at with it. He's probably got 1 year left of elite production, and then I would say I I would say he's probably closer. He's definitely closer to the finish line than he's not, but I think it's pretty close to the finish line.
I usually think in Dynasty, the realm of Dynasty is 3 years for me. Like I said, CMC, I think he's going to catch 90 passes for 10 more years. I really do. Now, can Dalvin Cook, can Derrick Henry, can Alvin Kamara produce as RB1s for the next 3 years? I feel pretty safe about that. After that, it's a crapshoot no matter how young they are. I mean, it really is. We've seen running backs deteriorate, I mean, after 3-4 seasons of heavy production. So do I believe Derrick Henry can be a top 16 back for the next 3 years? Yes. This dude's built different. We haven't seen anything quite like him, and his work ethic is second to none. Now, his first 2 seasons, he didn't get a ton of workload. He didn't get a ton of workload at Alabama until his last season there. So we're talking about a guy that, yes, he has insane amount of volume the last 3 seasons, but before that, it was very mild. So I consider him maybe a little bit younger than he actually shows. Now, he's obviously he's going to somewhere down the road lose a little bit of a step, but Derrick Henry is the type of guy that I like him right at the back end, around 11 or 12 in your dynasty, and you can probably get him in the 3rd round of super flex drafts and maybe even into the 4th. And I consider that a huge value because that makes you a win now team in startups. So I consider these rankings startup rankings in a vacuum. You don't know if you're going to be a contender or a tanking team or a rebuilding team right off the, some people rebuild right off the bat in a startup and they go for the younger players and they actually try to tank the first year. I've seen it work actually marvelously, but to me, get good value in the late 3rd or the 4th round on a Derrick Henry. I think that's a win-win that can put you in position to contend for your league for the first couple seasons that it starts off at.
Yeah, I've seen him more in the 5th round than 4th and 5th is where he's been going. But I'd be comfortable taking him as high as the back of the 3rd for sure.
What do you guys think the chances are that Tennessee gets somebody in the draft and, takes away a little bit off the top for Derrick Henry just to kind of like maybe ease him into those last couple of years to try and get the most out of him, because they've been running him at a 400 touch clip for a while now. So if you can even temper that back to 300, I mean, the production's still going to be there. Derrick Henry is still Derrick Henry. He's still a beast. But if you can kind of keep him alive for 16, 17 games, would you value that in a dynasty draft? Would you still take him knowing there's somebody waiting in the wings to snip off some of his targets or his carries?
I would rather I'd rather have Todd Gurley than I would Frank Gore. I mean, you had Todd Gurley just ripping off freaking ridiculous weeks. I'd rather my guy just get elite usage in production rather than trying to preserve him for longer, if that makes sense. I mean, the years you had Todd Gurley was insane and similar with Derrick Henry for me.
Well, your first question was, what are the odds that they bring somebody in?
Yeah, that's not.
And yeah, I call that very low because they showed Deontay Foreman came in and was pretty productive for the Titans. They were even running. I can't think of his name. He ran off a big run and had a 100-yard game. McNichols. Yeah, they had McNichols, and they even had somebody else that was in the mix a little bit, and they all were pretty productive. Henry, but I don't see them using any real draft capital. Will they bring in an undrafted free agent? Yeah, I'm sure they will. Will they maybe draft somebody in the 6th or 7th round? Yeah, sure, why not? But I don't see them using any real capital and picking off any one of these like top 7, 8 running backs that are coming into the draft this year.
Didn't they draft DJ Dallas? I mean, come on, guys. DJ Dallas is
that's Seattle.
Seattle.
Oh, is that Seattle?
They drafted a little scat back, Darrington Evans, who I actually kind of liked as being a little receiving back last year. Never came out. I think he was hurt and was out for the season. Could they bring someone that has a different dynamic if they're out on Evans? Possibly. I don't see any real draft capital, and if it is somebody, it's probably going to be that type of elusive back that would be a complete difference than what Henry does. It wouldn't be someone to take his job. It would be someone to maybe, be a different element of the offense.
See, here's what I think. I think they can bring in somebody, like you said, in the later rounds, fifth, sixth round. One guy I look at that could be a good fit there could be like somebody like a Abram Smith from Baylor, somebody who can run kind of the same style, can come in, can be just like a change of pace back for him. And if that were the case, I would kind of almost be a little bit higher on Henry and Dynasty, because if I knew that he was getting a little bit cut back and I knew he was still going to probably be producing at a top 12 level, I would be more inclined to take him for a dynasty team and envision myself 3 years down the line still winning a championship with him, rather than if he's going to be the straight up guy, 400 carries every single year until he's absolutely buried in the ground somewhere in Nashville. So yeah, that's kind of why I posed the question, just to kind of see where you guys are at with that, kind of see how you guys would view that. Another guy that we have some injury questions about, we haven't really seen him produce at a high level. We've seen him have some bursts here and there with his rookie season. J.K. Dobbins, how are you guys feeling about J.K. Dobbins coming back from the ACL?
Yeah, he's in my top 12, top 7, really. I think we're in for a good season for Dobbins. I got some stuff brewing over at Dynasty Nerds. I did quarterbacks this week for the best way to create value. The premise of these articles that I've been writing the last couple of weeks is guys that finished at the top of their position, like a Jonathan Taylor, trade down and acquire picks, but really it's not a trade down. So if you could trade, I think I wrote in my article, Joe Burrow for like Deshaun Watson and J.K. Dobbins, that's stuff I would do. I think Dobbins is going to have an elite season this year, and I love the situation that he's in. He was a great back. He was one of my top backs coming out of college. He was right up there. So I'm all in on J.K. Dobbins as well.
Yeah, dude, I was. Oh, sorry, Justin. Yeah, I was ready for it last year. I mean, I was ready for JKD to fucking explode. I mean, explode Mark Ingram out the way. He was going to be the third down back. He was going to catch passes. He was going to get some goal line work. I wasn't worried about Gus the Bus. He was going to average over 5 yards per carry with high volume, and that offense was going to be dynamic. And then he tears his ACL in preseason. Heartbroken. It happened in preseason, so he has a full 12 months to recover before the season starts. I am totally in on JKD. They need him. That offense needed him in the run game and in the pass game. As long as he fully recovers, which in this modern age of 2022, there's no reason he shouldn't. I expect him to be another huge buy and give me all the Dobbins shares I can possibly get, because I'm waiting on him to explode. And I have the biggest set of blue balls you've ever seen on J.K. Dobbins.
Are they Manscaped, though? It's an ad right there. Come on, Herrera.
I don't know about that, man. You're going to have to.
Well, no, I was trying to get him to play the.
Yeah.
Oh,
we're way over that point at this point in the show. We're way past that. But as far as J.K. Dobbins goes, I think that's a perfect example of what we saw with Austin Eckler last year, and not in the sense that he's going to be the cut through, or he's going to be the prototypical like receiving back and all that, in the sense that he's going to be somebody who jumps to the front of the pack from the very back. Austin Eckler was somebody who was being picked, almost at the turnaround pick, 112, 201. And I think that's where Dobbins is getting picked in some of these startup drafts. And I think that's a perfect spot for him, because you can pair him up with somebody like, maybe the next guy up, David Montgomery or a Josh Jacobs, or even how you guys feel about Travis Etienne? Like, there's another guy, ACL problem. He could have came back last year, but nobody really wanted to come back and play for Urban Meyer.
I'll tell you, I had a discussion with my buddy on this. I find myself in more so on James Robinson than ETN, but I'm in on both of them. Doug Peterson's shown us that he is a committee guy. and I think you're going to get good usage out of both of them, but you're not going to get, RB2 is right about right for me. I think you could put and should put James Robinson on this list. I think James Robinson's going to be the LeGarrette Blount. He's going to be the guy that scores the touchdowns on this offense, and you're going to have ETN being the guy in between the 20s.
Yeah, Doug Peterson is notorious for running back by committee and being very frustrating for fantasy owners. Now, both these guys had season-ending injuries. James Robinson with the ACL, or no,
ACL or Achilles? I can't remember.
I think
no,
it was
they were both
Achilles.
ACLs. They were both ACLs.
No. ETN was Liz Frank injury.
Oh yeah, he was the Liz Frank. You're right.
It happened in the another fucking preseason game. I actually had J.K. Dobbins and ETN on one dynasty team. It was pretty sad, actually. But either way, so ETN, I actually had above in my draft rankings last year. I actually had him above Najee. So I'm a huge ETN fan. It's just
it's an Achilles for Robinson.
Okay, yeah, sounds right. So neither were an ACL actually, but ETN was my favorite player at the running back position last year, even above Najee. And Najee really, he impressed me with that terrible Steelers offense last year. So obviously, I'm going to have ETN down a little bit more. Where's this offense going to go? It's going to get better. I'm really worried about Doug Peterson and his timeshare, and he likes to throw like 3 or 4 running backs into his running back committee, not just 2. So I'm a little worried about that, like the stuff he was doing in Philadelphia at the end of it. So I think this is very appropriate for ETN, a back-end RB2 in Dynasty that is he's gonna obviously play. He's gonna play longer than Ezekiel Elliott and maybe even like Aaron Jones or something like that. But he's not in a great scenario to be an RB1. I see him kind of muddling around as an RB2 for his career.
Are you saying that Jordan Howard's going to show up in Jacksonville next year?
Jordan Howard, Corey Clement. I mean, whoever, man.
Boston Scott's going to show up.
Boston Scott. I mean, whoever. They might trade for Kenny Gainwell. Who knows? But Doug Peterson is notorious. I mean, just for not just using the hot hand or just for no apparent reason, using somebody in the red zone that he shouldn't, or just giving people weighted touches that you're like, God damn it. That's not the RB1 guy. Come on. Your RB1's good. He's fresh. He's not hurt. What are you doing? But I like Doug Peterson as a head coach. I thought that was an amazing hire that's going to help Trevor Lawrence. I like the offense going forward compared to what it was. But the running back position, I think him and James Robinson are both going to be kind of muddling around as RB2s. Before we get too far, where did the rookies line up for you guys? Where do the rookies pin in here? Because you got to have a rookie in the top 24 unless you just hate this running back class.
I haven't gotten to it yet. I think everyone's over their skis on Breece Hall. He's the one guy I've watched. He looks okay, but I don't think there's a round 1 running back this year. Like a running back that goes in the first round for sure. I don't know. What do you think, Justin? I haven't gotten to watch all of it yet. But I wasn't like Breece Hall should be the 101. I'm kind of more in line of trading down and just taking Malik Willis, as we talked about earlier.
Actually, you know what? I feel that I'm not a Breece Hall fan myself. I don't think that he takes contact well. I don't think he has the best vision. I think he's a big back, and he could probably roll a couple people. But I don't think he's that great, to be honest. I think that the real stud is Kyron Williams, and he's just that guy that can just stop on a dime, reset, and change direction. It's crazy to watch him. His contact balance is absolutely stunning. Him and Isaiah Spiller are two guys. Two things that stand out for me are their balance and their abilities to bounce off of tackles. And for me, I kind of agree with my other Justin. There's no one guy on here that I would put immediately into RB2 territory. RB3, Sure, I'll take a safe bet on somebody who goes to a good spot. But I mean, there's nobody that just jumps out like Najee Harris did, like Javonte Williams, even Michael Carter did last year. There's nobody really in this class that does that for me.
I'll be honest though. I mean, I'll take Spiller or Hall over Zeke. Like, I don't think Zeke should be on this list.
Well, I mean, Zeke's going to be guaranteed touches at that point
for one season. I mean, I think Zeke is like Zeke's the guy that, like, the first year of my dynasty, I'm like, all right, is there any dude in this league that just loves himself? Like, the people that know names are the people that I will sell Zeke to at this point. Zeke's got like one season left, and then I think he's gonna disappear from any relevance. He'll be in the RB3 tier for sure.
Well, it all depends on how long his contract runs as a strong dead cap. I know for sure it's this season. I don't know if it goes down to $9 million next year.
I believe they get it. I know that they have an out next year. I just don't know.
Do they have an out
next year's year?
Gotcha.
So a lot of it's going to depend on landing spots, and obviously this is early March. We don't know the landing spots yet.
Yeah.
So we have no idea. So who knows? It could be Atlanta. It could be Buffalo. Could want a running back. Someone always surprises you. Nobody thought the Colts were going to take a running back when they took Jonathan Taylor. So you never know where these guys are going to go. It starts with Isaiah Spiller for me, because I think he's the most well-rounded back who has he has a lot of tread on those tires. Really nice size. He's not going to be a game breaker at all. Kenneth Walker is a guy I really like above Breece Hall. Breece Hall's my RB3, and he does everything really well, but I don't think he does anything great. And he doesn't. He's kind of, if he ends up in a lame dick situation, he's going to be kind of just a plotter, and you're just praying for touchdowns. And he can catch the ball really well, but he's not going to take a linebacker into the open field and get open. He's more of just a check down back, kind of like we were talking with AJ Dillon earlier. Kyron would be my fourth, and he can be elite in the receiving game. He's a 3-down back, and he can pass block also. I'm interested to see what he's going to weigh tomorrow. I'm hoping it's around over 200 pounds. If he's under the 200 mark, you get a little worried, and everybody's praying for an Austin Eckler comparison. I don't know. You can't guarantee on that. That's an outlier for that size. Rachaad White is a sleeper. I think he's going to have day 2 capital, maybe go to one of those spots that you don't imagine a running back being taken. And he reminds me of a little bit of a bigger Tony Pollard. This guy has as much shiftiness as any running back in this class, and he can catch the ball really well. And we all know everybody that's watching is probably playing in a PPR league, and that's the type of running backs you're looking for. So I would definitely have Spiller above Elliott, Michael Carter, and probably AJ Dillon. I would have Spiller right around probably RB20, but he could fall in the draft, and who knows? I could look silly right now, but I would move Elliott, Dillon, and Carter behind some of these rookies that are going to land in some decent spots.
So if that were to happen, who would you think ideally Spiller would land with for that to happen, be like a top 20 running back?
Well, I think he's going to go in the second round. Like Justin said, I don't see a first-round running back. I say that every year. I didn't think Najee was going to go in the first round, or let alone ETN. I didn't think Josh Jacobs was going to go a couple years back.
Yeah,
so
typically, what's funny is I think for the last 4 times that teams, the only time I've seen running backs go around 1 lately, the trend has been as if teams have 2 picks.
Yep.
So you're looking at like a Giants, Philadelphia. Philadelphia might.
Yeah, they're crazy. I'm thinking like an Atlanta in the second round, the Dolphins, obviously, a team like that. If they swoop up Spiller, and if they give him a top 50, top 60 draft capital, that's putting a lot onto a running back. You're thinking that they're going to get a decent workload, but you never know. There's always going to be a guy there to compete with. No matter where they get drafted, there's going to be somebody there to compete with. I think Atlanta would be a really good situation for either one of these rookie running backs to come in, take the job, basically day one, because Patterson's just kind of a slot player. Mike Davis was just way overhyped. Like that was nonsense last year, guys. Mike Davis was complete dynasty nonsense. I sold him for a 2023 second round pick and loved every second of it because I picked him up off the waivers in 2020. So, if Spiller ends up in like in Atlanta, I'd be pretty damn excited. Or even if hey, even though he's not my RB1, Kenneth Walker or Breece Hall end up in Atlanta, I'd be pretty excited. So, Buffalo would be a good situation, but I think they like Singletary. So there's a bunch of good situations out there that could be good, maybe not great. But we didn't think the Jonathan Taylor landing spot was great, but it ended up being very great because Quentin Nelson is the best offensive guard in the league.
Yeah.
And they're dedicated to running the ball.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire had the best landing spot.
And I whiffed on that because Andy Reid is kind of playing Doug Peterson a little bit because he doesn't trust him to tote the ball every time, and he's not giving him the volume, and he's not really producing. And
yeah, last year I was all over
about that Philadelphia Eagles head coaching job.
Last
season, not trust your number one running back. Let's face it, Andy Reid, Peterson, Sirianni, nobody trusts their number one running back.
I don't know though. I don't even know if it's that because last season I was all over. I was not a. I liked Clyde initially coming out. I loved Clyde, him. But last season, everyone was drafting Mike Davis, and I was like, guys, why are we drafting Mike Davis when, I was taking. I promised I was taking him, but who was the guy that was behind Clyde? I mean, I still have him everywhere, but
Darrell Williams.
Yeah, I was taking Darrell Williams everywhere, and it paid off until it didn't, right? Until Clyde came back, but that was the easiest buy for me because it just made sense that if someone gets hurt, he's the guy that's going to probably emerge as the starter because he's done stuff before. Now, obviously, he's worth nothing, but when Clyde gets hurt, as long as they don't draft another guy, Darrell Williams, I would rather have than a guy like Mike Davis every year.
What about Jerick McKinnon? Would you roster him knowing what you saw in the playoffs and late in the season?
Not based off any of that, but McKinnon did go to Mahomes' bachelor party, so he's got to be coming back.
There you go. Not even his own brother got an invitation. So of course Jerick McKinnon got an invitation.
That's just good business right there.
All right, guys. If you want to stick with me, let's do a couple more on the third list. And these are just kind of like the last people. Couple surprises here. I still think Damian Harris offers a lot of value in New England. And even if he leaves in free agency, I think he can find a job somewhere. He's somebody who just, he knows how to play the running back position. He doesn't really know how to be a receiving back or anything like that, but that's why they have Ramondre there, who also shows up on this list. Fournette, it's going to be interesting to see where he lands this offseason. If it's in Tampa again, if he ends up taking a job maybe in Miami or he ends up going somewhere else, I could see him still being successful. You just got to – and I think he got a new layer to his game when he went to Tampa. He became known as a guy who can be trusted catching the ball as well. So I think that kind of ups his value. I think that, if he lands in even if he lands in Tampa Bay, I still think you can probably bump him up into the top 24. How do you guys feel about Leonard Fournette?
No, thanks.
No? Nada?
I'm good. I'm completely out.
You're out on him?
I'm out. I mean, if he's free, stupid free, 10, 12 pound.
On this
I'm good, man. Honestly, he's maybe a year left. He was getting some – what did we talk with Saquon earlier? The offense is so terrible. He doesn't get any easy points. He doesn't get any weighted carries, easily. He has to break every tackle, and he has to produce every single yard. He was given 5 yards per carry. He was given dump downs from Tom Brady. He was given goal line carries from a top 3 offense in the league. And, if he ends up in a different situation or with Tampa Bay again – without a Tom Brady, I think it's going to be all bad, and you're going to feel nasty about it.
I don't even think he's coming back. Out of this, when we get to this territory, these are the guys the only guys in this list. Henderson should be the top of this list. That's the dude that I think he has the potential to start next season. He looked better in the Super Bowl than Cam Akers did. I get Akers just come back from injury, but Henderson Henderson looked great last year. I mean, as long as the dude's healthy, he's guaranteed a role in that offense. He's earned it to me. I think Penny's worth a shot, but he's probably going to get hurt again. And then I'm actually all in on Keyshawn Vaughn this offseason. I feel like not people have talked about that. I think he's the starter in Tampa this season. I don't think they're going to bring back Fournette because there's no reason to. They're not in Super Bowl mode. I think they're going to play with the young guys they have and see what they have in Keyshawn Vaughn since they spent that third round draft capital on him.
Look at where he's at, 54.
And I'm smashing that
Yeah.
all day. I love the value of Keyshawn Vaughn this year. If I'm wrong, guess what? It literally cost me like nothing.
Yeah, another guy to think about is Raheem Mostert. I like his value because I think that he goes to Miami and does kind of what Tevin Coleman did with New York, but he's a lot more of a dynamic running back. If he can stay healthy in Miami, he can pull off some good fantasy value for you. And it doesn't, like I said, this guy doesn't have to be your RB3 or anything like that. He can be just a bench player that you have, and he breaks out for a little bit. Oh, there you go, some points. One guy that I found was very interesting, Dearness Johnson. I don't know how you guys feel about Dearness Johnson and his, on and off again season with the Browns. Obviously, he's a free agent. You guys feel like there's any value there if he ends up signing on with a different team?
He put out some really good tape. He reminds me a lot of Jamal Williams when he was in Green Bay. So I could easily see him maybe get a contract somewhere like Jamal did to go to Detroit. Really good size, kind of shifty, not great speed at all. I think it's the reason why nobody ever knew his name coming out of college, but he was productive in college, can catch the ball a little bit. He was really like a B version of Kareem Hunt, which was really what the Browns needed last year when Kareem was hurt. And he took the starting job against Denver and had an amazing game on a Thursday night that won them the game. So he's got some juice in those legs, and he's definitely worth owning. I'm with you on the Keyshawn Vaughn. I would definitely be in on him before probably anybody else on this list. I hate Chris Carson. I've hated him for years. Madison's someone you should definitely think about owning for the exact reasons Justin was talking about, looking towards that free agency of 2023. Khalil Herbert showed a little juice last year. So there's some guys on this list that should be owned for sure.
Yeah. I'm with you. I haven't loved Chris Carson. He's been kind of a plotter, but 42, you get down to the list, you're like, all right, who's done this before, right? We get to this list. I think I'm with you. All those guys we mentioned, I'm above Chris Carson on, but you could do a lot worse based on the ranges where he's going at 42 as well.
Yeah. And what do you guys feel about Melvin Gordon? I mean, obviously he had himself a good year last year.
That's the Buffalo running back you're talking about right there. That's the dude going to Buffalo. I've said this since I think when we popped back up in January. Yeah, I think it's Melvin Gordon.
Yeah. You think it would be a good fit? You think it would be a fit that would be relevant fantasy-wise, or you think?
I think that Melvin Gordon is what they wished Zach Moss was. I think Singletary is the more shifty back, and I think Melvin Gordon's the guy that they're going to love in the goal line, where they can run a little zone read with Josh Allen, and then the defense is going to have to pick their poison because you got two big dudes going in that end zone.
So I think Melvin Gordon has a lot more juice than Leonard Fournette going forward.
Yeah,
they might both only have one more year of even being on a roster. Who knows? We've seen running backs fall off like this, Le'Veon Bell, Todd Gurley. But Melvin put out some great tape last year, and it was, he didn't get overworked. He's big. He still has that burst. He can catch the ball. He's a very well-rounded player with on game tape. Like it's kind of 50-50, like compared, like who put out better tape last year, Ezekiel Elliott or Melvin Gordon. And I think a lot of people are probably going to say Melvin Gordon. And depending on the situation where he ends up, if he comes back to Denver, it's going to be, you're not going to be very excited. But if he gets to that Atlanta spot I'm talking about, or to the Buffalo, or even the Dolphins, where we could see very easily see another top 20 season from Melvin Gordon. Where Leonard Fournette, I don't know. I'm not seeing it. He was gifted so many fantasy points last year.
Doesn't Dearness Johnson just scream Miami to you, or is that just me?
He does. Like Miami just loves like undrafted free agents that nobody else really kind of wants, and they ended up giving him a big workload, and like Selvin Ahmad was getting carries, and Gaskin everybody thought was a dynasty option. I even rostered him somewhere, and then I traded him for a nice mint actually before he completely fell off at the end of the season. I mean, they were running Duke Johnson. I'm the biggest Miami Hurricane fan in the world, as you can see. I love Duke Johnson. He wasn't on a roster for the first 8 or 10 weeks of the season, and he was rushing for 100 yards at the end of the season. So if they actually commit to somebody and give them a workload, they can be productive in Miami.
Yeah. So, I mean, 95 Nebraska is a better team, though.
Than 2001? I'd like to see it.
I don't know. I actually think 01 was better, but I'll never forgive Miami for what they did. My butt is still sore after watching that game, what they did in Nebraska.
Well, I would have, hopefully they have it in NCAA football 2024 or whenever it comes out that you can play these elite teams. But just with the NFL rosters, it's hard to ever go against what Miami put out on that team.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But those Nebraska teams, Tom Osborne, Scott Frost, Mon Green.
But man, Ed Reed, McGahee, I mean, just Shockey.
Sean Taylor was a backup. Like, are you kidding me? Kellen Winslow Jr., even though he's in prison as a rapist, he was a backup. Frank Gore Jr. was a backup. Like, Willis McGahee was a backup because Clinton Portis was the starter. Jeremy Shockey, Andre Johnson, and yes.
When your depth chart is full of starting running backs, that's when you know.
I was like a junior in high school, and it's what I still remember very vividly. We won a national championship. It's one of the best days of my life, next to when my daughter was born and when I got married. It's up there. It's a top 5 day for me. So I remember that day vividly.
I remember my mom was making meatball sandwiches, and by the time the meatball sandwiches were done, which was like halfway through the first quarter, it was like, well,
the game's over.
What do you guys want to do tonight?
It was like, I think it was 31-0 in the second quarter. Yeah. We jumped on that Nebraska team with why can't I think
Crouch.
of the quarterback?
Yep.
Crouch. Eric Crouch, and I think he won the Heisman that year. And Nebraska was actually, number 1 a lot of that season. Like
they shouldn't have been. Yeah, that was the one of the
worst. A little disrespected, but great team. And thanks for letting me relive that real quick. It was a great day in my life. But you guys got us in '94. That was when I was. I'm not sure your age, but I'll show my age. I was about 10.
I was 4, so
you guys got us in '94. It hurt my feelings. Warren Sapp, and then we didn't get to play you in '96. We weren't very good, but we got you back in 2001 for sure.
See, I'm the unfortunate soul that I started watching Nebraska football when I was like 10, so like 2000. So I have never. To me, it's like a conspiracy theory that Nebraska was ever good.
And it's tough because that's the one team. Like Miami has a chance to come back because of recruiting. USC is always going to have a chance to come back because of recruiting. Texas, Tennessee, they're in the South. Man, it's going to be hard for Nebraska to ever come back anywhere close to the national stage. They were getting a lot of kids from like California back in the day, and Tom Osborne, and with the recruiting, they were running the triple option and it worked, and it's they got these great defenses. Like it's going to be so hard, and I hated the move to the Big Ten.
Yeah, I didn't love it either, but
I've hated every single team that's left their conference. I haven't said like that's a good move. Only thing I liked was Utah going to the Pac-12. I like group of 5 teams going to a team like Utah jumping up, TCU jumping up. I like that. I hated every single move. And now Oklahoma and Texas are going to the SEC. It makes no sense.
Well, they're going to get boat raced, by the way. That's going to be the funniest thing. Because what's going to happen is like Alabama's going to go into Texas and be like, why would you go to Texas when you could just come here and beat up on your hometown?
They get anybody they fucking want anymore. They got Bryce Young out of California.
Yeah, that's true.
But Nebraska, I think college football is a little bit better when Nebraska is a top 20 team. I think college football is better when Miami is a top 20 team.
Yeah, I miss, like you said, the good old days when there was real rivalries, not made up ones.
Oh yeah, they took away Nebraska, Oklahoma.
Nebraska. I live in Kansas City now with my wife. I miss Kansas, Missouri. That was always fun on Black
Kansas,
Friday.
Missouri was a huge rivalry. I mean,
Yeah.
that was a big rivalry in college basketball. Texas A&M, I would put that up there with almost any rivalry. Seriously. They took that away. West Virginia, Pittsburgh. Now I'm in Canton, Ohio, so I'm not a West Virginia or Pittsburgh fan. I'm only 2 hours out of Pittsburgh. That is a rough rivalry. I mean, that was huge for those two states. College football just took it away.
Yeah, I can't imagine being a part of any of those rivalries because the only rivalry I know is Cal versus USC. And that's not a very good rivalry. It doesn't favor my Cal Bears very much.
Cal Stanford.
It's Cal Stanford, yeah. But, I mean, to be honest with you, I always went to the USC games because I always wanted them to whoop up on USC. When I was getting big in Cal, like Stanford was like a bottom feeder. Like they were like winning 2 games. So like you go to Stanford, you'd be like, we're expected to win this fucking game. But when we were playing USC, you wanted to beat Pete Carroll. You wanted to beat those teams.
Oh yeah. They were juggernauts.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, this is the end of another great episode. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Zach Zander, for joining us, my man. It's been a pleasure. Hope to have you on again.
Hey man, anytime. It's been fun. I'll shoot it with you guys anytime.
Yeah, man. Plug yourself. Tell us what you're doing. Tell us where we can find you and everything.
Well, I have my own podcast, Roster Rescue, and I dig deep into Dynasty, college football, the draft, and all that good stuff. You can find me wherever you find your podcast. You know that good stuff. And I work with the True Serum Boys. They kind of sponsor the podcast, so I stream live on Twitter. You can find me at Zach Zander on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook. And, feel free to DM me any questions. That's what I'm here. Roster Rescue is big with fan interaction and answering questions and the day-to-day Dynasty grind. And also get real into Devy because I love, like we were just talking college football. So Devy is a Dynasty format not a lot of people play. Not a lot of people know about it because the format it's just starting. But Devy would be like you start your Devy draft. You could draft Quinn Ewers from Texas. You can draft Bijan Robinson and stuff like that. So you almost create a farm team that you promote up to your dynasty squad. So like I have a Devy team that already has Drake London, Jahan Dotson, and I got Jameson Williams really low. So it was a team that I'm like, when you're watching the scouting combine and you're waiting for the draft, you're just like, man, you don't have
rookie vested interest.
Yeah, you don't have rookie drafts, you have college drafts. So you're almost looking into the true freshmen that are coming in, some of the studs, Branson Robinson that a lot of people know about from Georgia, who's built like 6 foot 240 like Derrick Henry already. So that's the stuff I'm into. So find me wherever you find your podcast, Roster Rescue. Hit me up on Twitter at Zach Zander.
Yeah, man. And that's a great podcast. Those are great guys over at the True Serum Football. Nothing but compliments to those guys. Those guys have done it on a phenomenal level. Justin, I know that you love Devy yourself. Are you coming up with anything Devy recently, or are you doing something with the nerds? What are you up to?
Just the nerds. I got this quarterback downgrades, looking at some trades to, I'll say it here. I think it'll come out this weekend, but identify quarterbacks that I went through the data. Went through some data, found out that so since 2012, I don't know if you guys know this, since 2012, there's been 8 QB1 finishes. So there's only been 2 people that have repeated as QB1s. And Josh Allen's the only one in that time that's done it back to back. Aaron Rodgers is the only one that's ever done it twice with that. And then 25% of the top 12 actually moves every year. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to identify the quarterback that I think is a sell high in Dynasty, Joe Burrow. And I'm trying to find candidates that I can trade down to while also acquiring depth at other positions is the main source of the article.
Very nice. Very nice. So you can catch him at the Dynasty Nerds. Catch out the QB downgrade. It's going to be a phenomenal article because Justin puts his heart and soul into all of it. And as usual, you can catch us here every Thursday at 9:30, and you can catch me on Twitter at SemtexMax93. Guys, have a beautiful night. Cheers it on out. Have a nice one. Keep brewing up championships, Brew Crew.